What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Classic Wax Sports Card channel. I'm Eric. If you don't know who we are, Classic Wax Sports Cards is a repackaged sports card product. We put cards from the 1950s all the way to today in authentic wax wrappers like these ones here in front of you. That's what you're going to get. The boxes are just like this here. You can go to our website, classicwaxsportscards.com, and check it out. There's all kinds of examples on there, and you can find everything. We do baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. And we'll have more stuff to come in the future as well. I think we're currently out of stock of baseball, but we should have that back in stock very shortly. So check us out. What we're going to be doing on this channel, my intentions for this is to open up unopened wax product from the past. Like today we have a box of 1987 Topps football. It's missing a couple packs, but we're going to open what's left, and this is going to go into classic wax football packs, like this one right here. So that's sort of the intention of the channel, is to open up old product that I have, which I have quite a bit of. This is just one example. It's a decent product. I mean, this box goes for a little bit of money, but it's nothing spectacular. But there's some good rookie cards in here. Jim Kelly rookie card, Randall Cunningham rookie card, Jerry Rice second year card. So there's some nice stuff in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the product, and we're going to sort of showcase some of these older products from the 80s and stuff like that, and end up putting it into the Classic Wax sports card product itself. So the cool thing about this particular box is it doesn't have one of those X outs on it. Now I have another box here of, this is another box of 87 football. Like this one kind of hasn't been touched. It came right out of a case, but it was one of those cases where they were returned to the factory. So I believe that's what created all these marks. You see the X outs on the ones from like this era, a lot of the Topps products. I wish they wouldn't have done that to kind of ruin the box, because a lot of people like to collect the box because some of these boxes, they have the ones from this era. I mean, they've got these cool box bottoms, which are pretty unique. Like collectors like to, team collectors or player collectors. Like if you're a John Elway collector, you want that card right there. It's different than the other cards because it's got a yellow border. So people collect the boxes, and it's kind of a bummer that they, this one's got, I think, Jerry Rice on the bottom. Yeah, and it's got Walter Payton there too, Phil Simms, Joe Morris. So anyway, we're gonna open up this box, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the year 1987 in the NFL. That was a pretty historic year for the NFL. It was the year of the strike, the players' strike. So I think it was weeks 4 through 6 the replacement players played. So if you've ever seen that movie with like Keanu Reeves, I think it's called The Replacements. It's basically based off of that. It was sort of like loosely based off of that, or the Washington Redskins team, which ended up being who won the Super Bowl that year. So the Redskins were the Super Bowl champs over John Elway and the Denver Broncos. Now, John Elway won the MVP that year of the league. He was sort of, coming into his prime at that point. And the offensive player of the year was Jerry Rice, and the defensive player of the year was Reggie White. So those are some of your big awards. Now, the first overall pick in the draft that year, Vinny Testaverde, who had a nice career. Cornelius Bennett was the second pick. Alonzo Highsmith, third pick. They were good players. The only Hall of Famer that was drafted in that draft was Rod Woodson, 10th overall. Some of the other notable first-round picks that year, Jim Harbaugh, the coach now, Jim Harbaugh. He was quarterback, Chicago Bears, drafted 26th overall. And Mark Ingram Sr. was drafted last pick of the first round by the New York Giants that year. Now, the supplemental draft that year ended up having Brian Bosworth go first overall. Now, he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but then Chris Carter, fourth round pick in the supplemental draft by the Philadelphia Eagles, Chris Carter, who goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. So he came from that. He was drafted that year, but in the supplemental draft. So pretty interesting year. I remember that Super Bowl pretty vividly. This is like the second year I started collecting cards. I started collecting 86 in 86, and Topps Football, actually, 86 Topps Football were the first cards that I collected. So this was like the second year I collected cards, and I was super into this set and this particular year, and I had tons of these cards. So we'll go ahead and take a handful of these packs out, and we'll get ripping here. And I'll set this over to the side. So I just wanted to show everybody that other box so you can see the difference. Like if you're looking to buy these boxes, most of the ones you're going to find have that black X on it. Let's put these right here, and actually we'll go over here. So if you ever see a box that doesn't have that X, I mean, I think it's worth buying because there aren't many of those left. Now we still have the gum in this year. There's your wax wrapper. Now, when you get if you were to buy classic wax, or if you've already bought our wrappers, the big difference is the thinness or the thickness of the paper. The paper back here in the day was like really crinkly, but it's almost impossible to mimic that at this point because of the ink process and some of the other things that go on. But this is a pretty darn cool wrapper, and to be honest with you, in my hand, it doesn't feel much different than my wrappers. So I'm very pleased with the outcome of our classic wax wrappers. They really turned out awesome. The feel is like perfect. The colors are great. So they really, I think, are top notch. So if you're a person who really appreciates wax, give them a shot. We put some awesome cards in there. You'll be able to pull off stuff from all over the 60s, the 70s, even the 50s. So, all right, let's get to ripping here. What do we got? Doug Smith. Some ink up there. Morton Anderson. I get this guy every time I open a Donald Igwebuike, I think his last name is. I probably butchered that. Checklist, Earl Farrell, Chuck Nelson, Frank Minifield, J.T. Smith. Now we're looking for some of the big cards. Andre Waters, I think that's his now. And Dave Dearson. So Jim Kelly's rookie card is in this particular year. So is Randall Cunningham. Not a Hall of Famer, but a very, very good player, and my favorite player growing up. I think Charles Haley rookie card is in this year. And then, of course, there's your gum stain. At least the gum's not stuck to these. It seems to just be kind of like falling off, but there's stains for sure. So, all right. Dave Jennings record breaker, Jim Jeffcoat, Hobie Brenner, Bill Fralick, James Brooks, another checklist, Chuck Long, Ernest Givens, Jacob Green, Joe Klecko, Dan Fouts, Dennis Smith, Bobby Johnson, Charlie Joyner, John Stallworth. So, nothing huge there. Herschel Walker, he's another one in this set, rookie card. I think he's the only one. Maybe Doug Flutie as well. I think Doug Flutie's rookie card comes from this year. He was on the Bears, so he's in a Bears uniform. And then a lot of really good second-year cards because you know how good 86 is. So I think this is kind of an underrated set. Lorenzo Hampton, Ken Clark, Tony Eason, Brad Benson, Charles Romes, Barry Ridden, Dokie Williams, Charles Rogers, Roger Craig, Bruce Booty. There's another actual Roger Craig. That's his third year card, I believe, because his rookie, I think, is 85. I could be wrong about that. Ernest Givens, super rookie. Okay. Stephon Page. Timmy Newsome. All right. So I like this particular set as far as like the look of the set, the design. I think it's got a really good kind of classic look. I think they were going for the. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I've never read this or anything. I think they were kind of going for the 1977 Topps, like a 10-year anniversary on the 77 Topps baseball. I mean, or maybe even their football kind of was the same way back then. But it reminds me of that year from, I believe it's 77. Vi Sikahema rookie. Joe Morris. Steve Largent record breaker. We got here Rogers. Johnny Hector, Ronnie Lippett. Danny White. Oh, no big hits so far. Yeah, so comment below what's your favorite year of football cards. One of the things I found really interesting here when I had this pulled up on the computer of the fantasy stats from 1987. They had extrapolated those. There's another John Stallworth, Doug Smith, Gary Clark, James Brooks, Henry Marshall, Phil Simms, Chuck Long, and a Bill Brooks rookie. So 1987 fantasy stats were pretty amazing. Here's your top 10 fantasy players for the year 1987. Let's see here. Go ahead and open up another pack while that. Okay, here we go. So, fantasy stats for 1987. Fantasy rankings. Number 1, Jerry Rice. I guess they're saying he'd have 313 PPR points is what it looks like. It would extrapolate to, or 317 potentially. Joe Montana is number 2, significantly behind Rice. Charles White, who was comeback player of the year that year, he's number 4, or 3, excuse me. Randall Cunningham, number 4. Probably because Randall scrambled so much. I mean, he had 500 yards rushing that year on 76 attempts. So then we have Herschel Walker, who was a rookie that year. He's number 5. John Elway, number 6. Mark Bavaro, 7. Neil Lomax, J.T. Smith, Dan Marino, Eric Dickerson, Kurt Warner, Gary Clark, Carlos Carson, Bernie Kosar, Mike Quick, and Steve Largent. So that's pretty cool to see those guys. I mean, really does translate. I mean, your top 3 QBs are Montana, Cunningham, Elway, Neil Lomax, and Dan Marino. Neil Lomax is the only, and he was a serviceable quarterback, so I think he must have just had a really great year that year, statistically. Another Andre Waters, Dave Thierson, Jim Giles, Albert Bentley, and Herman Hunter. So the next year, 1988 Topps, I have a couple of those boxes as well. We'll open those on the channel for sure. That's got the Bo Jackson rookie card and the Boz rookie cards in that one. Christian Okoye, Testaverde. So we'll rip that at some point as well. I don't have a box of 86. I wish I had a box of 86. Ronnie Lott, Ricky Jackson, Donnie Shell, Christensen, Butts, Largent. Oh, here we go. We got a Dan Marino coming up. Marino, sweet. I always liked that card too. I used to have tons of those. Put that to the side. I love Marino. I was kind of a Marino guy. I was a Randall guy for sure. I mean, the Eagles are my team, and Randall was definitely my favorite player. But man, I loved watching Dan Marino, and there was just something about him. So I would always root for the Dolphins. They were in a different conference than the Eagles, and they were sort of my AFC team that I'd always root for when I was younger, mostly because of Marino. Liked Elway a lot too. Elway was a really good player. Darrell Green, speaking of really good players, Darrell Green is a Hall of Famer. He's one of the fastest guys ever in the NFL. There it is. Look at that. Man, that's a shame. That is a really really well centered Cunningham. I don't know if you can see that right down there, right here. There's like an ink defect, I guess they would call that. So, a few of those had that in this, but that's not too bad. I mean, it's still very nicely centered. So, I'll go ahead and put that in a little penny sleeve, and we'll display it here. Because I think that's for me, it's the best card in the set. But I guess you could argue that all right, so there we go. Let's put Randall on display right here. All right. Well, we got to finish this pack off. Joe Klecko, Dan Fouts, Mark Duper. Who knows here? We might get another big hit. Wouldn't that be something? Danny White, Matt Suey, Dennis Gentry. Oh, Singletary with a gum stain on the back. So you can comment below if you've want to see something in particular, or you have a certain type of. Most of the stuff is from the junk wax era, but that I'm going to open up on this channel. But it's all stuff that's sort of more premium products from the junk wax era, like stuff of this level. Craig James, announcer. Ruben Mays. Kelvin Bryant. Ernest Jackson. Dwight Stevenson. Dwight Stevenson, I think, is in the Hall of Fame. He was a really good player. I know that much. Alright, we'll get some more packs out here. Got a lot of disgusting gum here. I'm not a fan of the gum, just so people know. I mean, I know people love the gum and everything, but man, it's just nasty. When it's been sitting around for that long, it's just gross to even contemplate trying to put it in your mouth and eat that stuff. It's gross. But I've seen guys do it, man, but you will never see me doing that. Might take you a year to digest that and get that out of your system. Who knows? This card, Bobby Joe Edmonds, I swear I've seen this card 1,000 times. When I was a kid, I used to get this card in every pack I pulled. This top super rookie, and he's wearing that was definitely taken at training camp, I would guess, with that Seahawks throwback. That's that thing would be dope if you could find that on eBay now. That hat. Jim McMahon, Pepper Johnson. So I'll throw that Randall in a pack. Heck, it's a really nicely centered Randall. It's just got that one little tiny, ink spot on it. But that's the kind of stuff that we put in packs. It's you're probably not going to find a perfect 10, although there's plenty of them, But these vintage cards, most of the stuff is not even close to 10s. So that's sort of why I don't mind putting it in there, because it's it's people that are collectors like myself. The condition's not exactly we're not super concerned about condition. I mean, some stuff you are. It kind of depends, but I know as a collector, I would love pulling that Randall Cunningham out of a repackaged pack, and I wouldn't care that there was a little print error on it. It's a pretty nice Lawrence Taylor right there. I'll put him aside just because he's so great. Got a couple of those Andre Waters already. James Lofton, great receiver. Keep knocking this thing down here. All right, Tommy Kramer, John Williams, Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen was really good. Really good. Jay Schroeder. We're looking for the Jim Kelly. Or, I really liked Herschel Walker, so I'd like to get a Herschel Walker here. Oh, yeah, there's an Elway coming up. I had to peek. Dickerson in the Rams. Walter Payton and John Elway back to back. That's a great pack. That's your last ever Walter Payton right there. That's a nicely centered one. Might be slightly off right to left. Looks pretty good top to bottom. I mean, these cards are crispy. They don't have any corner or edge wear. That's for sure. Look at that! Look at that career right there. Look at all those 1,000-yard seasons. 82 was his only year. He must have been injured that year. I'm sure he was. Wow, what a career, man! Look at that. Elway at that point. Let's see. Oh, Elway's the one with the gum stain. Or that's a shame. Gosh, that is a shame. Elway to that point, nothing spectacular. I mean, he hadn't really. 87, I guess, was kind of his breakout. I mean, he was already kind of established as very good. I know that. But at 87, he ended up winning the MVP this year. So, put that Walter Payton on display until we pull something better. I guess some could argue that's the best card in the set. I mean, if you're a huge Walter Payton fan. And that's his last base card. I think 88 he's in it with like a record breaker card or something. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. All right, Gary Clark. Oh, yeah, my boy Marino. Man, is that another one of those print things? I think it is. Looks like another one of those like little ink smudges like the Cunningham there. Can't really tell what that is. He was so good. Let's see what his stats look like up to that point. Oh, look at that. Oh, you're not even close. Look at those yards compared to what Elway was. Wow, that's remarkable. And his touchdowns too. 48, 30, 44. Huh. Holy cow. Those are like numbers from today. This guy was doing it in an era when everyone was throwing or running the ball. I mean, pretty unbelievable. Dan Marino was in the NFL today. He would be like your Aaron Rodgers. Perhaps even better. I mean, he would be like at least that good. There we go. There's a Herschel Walker rookie. These are nicely centered. That one's got a little tiny thing here on the top that would keep it back from a 10. But if you can see that little tiny mark. Otherwise, that's a nice card. Herschel Walker rookie. That'll go into class. Oh, followed by Doug Flutie rookie. Doug. Look at Doug, man. 5'9", 176. Wow. This is his rookie card, although the year before he played for the Bears in 86. I guess he was their backup that year. So he must have won a ring with them in 86. Didn't even know that. Or no, that was 85. Excuse me. I misspoke. 85 was the year the Bears won the Super Bowl. So he came, I guess, the year after because he was in the USFL in 85. And then I guess 84 was the year he was in the Heisman. All right, we got a checklist there on the back. Let's see what we got here. John Williams, Todd Christensen, Stanley Morgan, Mark Bavaro. He was a stud back then. He was like your Jason Kelsey is now. That was like him back then. In an era when they didn't really throw the ball or use the tight end all that much. But guys like him, they did. They used him quite a bit. Jay Novacek on the Cowboys, they used that guy a ton. There's another Walter Payton. Otis Wilson and Irv Eatman. Yeah, there were just some guys back then who were just so good they couldn't. Keith Jackson for the Eagles, he was another tight end that was really, really, really good as a pass catcher. I saw a highlight of him. I want to say it's in the national championship game for Oklahoma. He goes sprinting down the sideline like he had a catch and run for like an 80-yard touchdown run, but it was just incredible how fast he was for a tight end. You don't think of guys being like tight ends back in that day being super athletic, but trust me, they were. There were a couple of them. Guys like Bavaro, and there's the fridge. That's such a cool picture. Yeah, Bavaro was a monster, and Keith Jackson was another one. He was an absolute monster for the Eagles. He was out of Oklahoma. He played at Oklahoma with Bosworth, and the Boz was a monster in college, and then really would have been a monster, I think, in the pros. He had a pretty good rookie year. He just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, his shoulders were shot. Who knows? Probably just from injecting steroids so much. That guy was basically shot. His body was shot. Steve Largent, Hall of Famer there. By the time he got to the NFL, his body was already beat up. So he didn't last very long, and he was sort of considered a bust. But I wouldn't really consider him a bust. Injuries just derailed him. Bruce Smith, that's his second year card. His rookie is in '86. Great card. Great player. You know, one of the best defensive ends of all time right there. Had the sack record, I think, for a while. I'm not sure. I think he doesn't have it anymore, obviously, but he held it for a few years, I think. This particular year, the wrapper it's pretty cool. You know, they didn't change their wrappers much, the designs of them back then. Like for tops, they kind of stayed the same in that you can't hardly tell the difference between 87 and 88, I believe. I'm not sure what 86 looked like off the top of my head. There's a Walter Payton card as he's barrels forward. I got to put all the Walter Payton cards to the side. Tommy Kramer, John L. Williams, another Marcus Allen, Bavaro, Mark Lee, Ross Browner, Todd Christensen, Mark Clayton, Keith Bishop, Dennis Hara, Eddie Edwards, and a checklist. Mark Clayton was a fantastic receiver. Him and Mark Duper. Did they call them guys what did they call those guys? The Mark brothers or what? I forget. But they were Marino's. I mean, those guys in Marino. They were the ones catching all those yards from Marino. They were both burners, from what I remember. Both guys were fast, and he would just chuck it up, and they would go get it. They were definitely all, Pro Bowl caliber receivers. Wilbur Marshall, he was beast. All right, we could still go for a Joe Montana or an Elway, or excuse me, a Rice Montana. We haven't gotten Jim Kelly yet. But keep in mind, a few of these, I bought this box for super duper cheap, like ridiculously cheap, and they were missing a few packs, and that's why it was cheap. So I figured I'd take a shot. So far, so good. Rulon Jones, Mike Gain, and Frank Garcia. So yeah, 1987 was the year of the strike. That would be such a bummer if that happened now. If something like that happened and they had to play with the scabs, as they called the replacement players. That's a pretty funny movie. If I remember, it's not a terrible movie. I actually think I enjoyed it, if I remember correctly. The Keanu Reeves movie. Bernie Kosar. Man, he was good. He was a solid player, Bernie. I don't think that's his rookie because he's in 86, I think. That's a big boy right there. Gary Fensick. All right, the 45 defense. See his jersey number, 45? That's where it comes from. I think Buddy Ryan named it after him because he was like the key player in that defense for them. But again, I think I'm right about that. But I don't know. It's been so long since I've read some of this stuff, but pretty sure I'm right about that. Gary Fensick, number 45. That's how the 45 defense got called, the 45 defense. But again, if I'm incorrect, somebody could correct me in the comments, I'm sure. All right, Cedric Mack, Curtis Jordan. Look at that guy. He looks like he just like stole something. No Steve Young yet. No Reggie White yet. A little disappointing. Darryl Talley, good linebacker. James Lofton, great receiver. And Andre Reed, second year card of Andre Reed. Nicely centered. Good looking card right there. With boo. Man. It's always got to be a good card. 6 foot 186, Kutztown. I didn't grow up far from Kutztown. I mean, I had some friends that went to Kutztown. I've been there. Small little liberal arts college somewhere outside of like Reading, Pennsylvania. Kind of surprising. I think he's by far the most famous athlete to ever come from Kutztown. It's not really a school known for athletics. I don't even think they're close to Division I in football, but I could be wrong about that. But for Andre Reed to come from a tiny school like that's pretty remarkable. All right, what do we got here? Carl Eckern. Kevin House, Darren Nelson. There it is. Jerry Rice. Good looking one too. Pretty well centered. Yeah. Good looking card. Nothing wrong with the back. Okay. Put that to the side and sleeve it up. Phil Simms, Christensen, Richard Dent. Marino's leader card. Oh, we got a Warren Moon coming up. Marino and Tommy Kramer. Tommy Kramer leading the league in passing yards. Look at that. Warren Moon. Nicely centered. That's his third year? Yeah, third year card. His rookie year is 85 with the black borders. Bill Pickle, nose tackle. You don't see too many guys now with the name nose tackle. They don't really call them that anymore. I mean, they just call them D tackles, but in a 3-4 defense, I always thought that's what the guy was called. The nose. When I was growing up, they called that guy the nose tackle. I guess they've kind of changed some of the lingo over the years, but you don't hear and you don't see nose tackle referenced too often. But clearly back in '87 they were calling guys nose tackles. Oh, there's a Walter Payton. Slide that out of the way. There's his 1,000-yard club. I never liked that particular one with the pillars. The record breaker card from '86, they're cool looking. There's like a lightning bolt on it. I'm a big fan of those. Nice. Look at that, man. Another one of those print things on the Merino. That's just disappointing. That one's kind of miscut too. Raul Alegre, Zeke Mowatt, Gary Anderson, Roy Green, Wes Chandler, Tim McGee, Albert Bentley, Craig, Roger Craig, Ernest Givens, Stephon Page. All right, only 2 packs left. We've not gotten a Jim Kelly. Disappointing. So we'll have to see what happens here. But maybe we'll get lucky here in the last 2 packs. All right. Masi Tatupo, Gilbert, Lester Hayes, Dorsett, Kosar, Joe Morris, J.T. Smith. He was a good player. He was one of those guys on that fantasy list that year. Dickerson. Look at that Dickerson card with the goggles and the turtleneck. I'm putting that to the side. That's a cool card. There it is. Steve Young. Always liked that card of Steve Young. I don't know why. I just think him in those creamsicle Bucks unis, cool cards. They're cool looking. Anthony Munoz, Wilbur Marshall. Munoz is a Hall of Famer. We'll set him. He's arguably, I guess you could make the argument that Tony Munoz is. This is all like, I don't know if you see these little flakes. It's like gum residue. All right, let's hope for something different here. Jim Kelly rookie, hopefully. Last pack, Gary Anderson, Dexter Manley. He was a good player. He had some off the field issues though that kind of hindered him. Bill Brooks, Keith Byers. Nope, doesn't look up. At least we end with a Tony Dorsett with a gum stain or a wax stain. Some kind of stain. Gum stain, I guess. Well, that does it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for checking us out. Thanks for tuning in. We'll go over a quick little... Here's the stack of all the good stuff. Pretty good stack. Got this Jerry Rice. Probably the next best card behind the Randall Cunningham right there. A couple of these Walter Paytons. And a stack of a bunch of other stuff of other Hall of Famers. Marino, I believe, is in there a couple times. So, not a bad rip. I'm sure once we open that other box of '87, the full box, we'll get a Jim Kelly rookie. We'll probably get a couple of the other big cards out of there. But I collect these box bottoms, so probably save that Jerry Rice one for sure. Maybe that Walter Payton one, even though there's a crease there. I usually keep these boxes because I also collect them as well. But anyway, give us a check on classicwaxsportscards.com. Check us out on Instagram. That's where we do most of our updates. And stay tuned for further videos where we'll be opening up some other pretty cool stuff of all the sports that we feature. Have a good day. Take care.